Anyway, so that's for anyone who cares about that sort of stuff. Nobody. I'll probably not include any of this. Hi, my name is Dobby. I wish we could skip right to the end. Hi, my name is Dami. I'm a writer, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the tools and resources that I use that I find helpful for my writing. Recently passed 500 subscribers. To everyone who is following, subbing, just following my journey and my videos and commenting and liking, and just even if you're just watching and just a lurker, I really appreciate you being here. It really means a lot. Really just here to share a little bit of my story, my process, my writing, how the story progresses, because I don't know either how things are going to go, and just documenting that. And it means a lot that you're interested in that journey as well. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Ew, that's sappy. Let's move on. We're keeping it cozy today, but today, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the resources that I use for my writing. We'll start off first with apps and like electronic stuff and software, and then we'll go into books and resources. To keep things in the spirit of reading and all that nonsense, we're going to give all of my resources a 5-star rating. So I've got a 5-star rating system going on that has no true rhyme or reason, like the way I use my GOODREADS account as well. These are the resources that I actually use right now, right? Like I'm a 500 sub YouTube channel, ain't got no sponsorships here. And so that means when I make it big and I sell out to capitalism, you could just come back to this video and see what I was really using and call me out on my BS. So without further ado, let's get into the stuff that I use to write. So first, software. Number one is Scrivener. I am a Scrivener groupie. I will follow Scrivener to the ends of the earth. If Scrivener tells me to jump off a cliff, I will say sure. If they say jump, I'll say how high. I use Scrivener for my early drafts. I think they only had a Mac version at first. They didn't even have PC for a while, and that's when I was using Scrivener. So I did look that up. I think they opened up to PC in 2011. That's what my notes say, 2011. So it must have been around that time that I started using Scrivener because I had a Mac and it was only for Mac at the time. I also love it because you buy it and you own it. It's $60 and you have the Scrivener and you're good to go. I think you do have to buy a different version though if you're using like Mac and Windows. So if you're someone who uses like a Mac laptop and Windows desktop and want to go between the two, you might have to get both. So Scrivener gets 5 out of 5 stars. It can do no wrong. I mean, it can, but I love it. And it gets that 5-star too. I do knock off stars in my rating system if it's a subscription service. No, I want to own stuff. So Scrivener has a lot of bells and whistles, and I do not take advantage of any of them. I think I take advantage of at most like 10% or so of the capabilities that Scrivener has. I know it's good for screenwriters, I know it's good for novelists, short stories and all of that, but I just really use kind of the fiction settings. It's great too because it can really serve as a second brain and have all of your, like research for your story, character sheets, locations, upload all that sort of information into Scrivener and also write your story. So everything related to your story is in one space. You don't have to kind of go between like planning software and actual drafting writing software. You can just put it all in Scrivener. I don't personally use it like that. I've tried it. It's just not for me, but I do know a lot of people do like the fact that it does a good job of organizing all of the information that you need to know as well for your story, not just for plotting. I also think Scrivener is great for both plotters and pantsers. Scrivener is set up in a way where you can really organize things very, very well. You can really like nest like different scenes into different chapters or into plot beats and that sort of thing. You can organize it however you'd like, and that's great for, I imagine, people who are very serious like plotters. Maybe put a summary of the chapter on the back of the note card, and when you click on the note card it goes into the full chapter, splitting things up by scenes. So if you're a heavy plotter in that sense, I think it's a very useful tool. If you're also more of a pantser and you are someone, and with pantsing I think comes with a lot of shuffling that happens in post or in editing, which is me, and so that means it's very easy for me to shuffle and move chapters around and see where I move them. I can have draft 1, draft 2, draft 3 of my story all in the same file document, and so I can see where I physically have relocated scenes or physically relocated chapters. I'm more of a plantser, so I'm a mix between a plotter and a pantser. I think I am generally just skewing as I get maybe older, skewing more towards plotter, like full plotter. I started off as a heavy pantser when I first was writing more, and now I'm somewhere in the middle. So I wonder if in the future, I wonder if in the future I'll be more of a plotter. I know there are other softwares that do a similar thing, but I grew up with Scrivener. I'm stuck with Scrivener. I beat Scrivener. So now we're getting a little bit into like technicalities, and this is really not my area of forte. I'm not a programmer. I'm not an engineer in any capacity, so I don't know how any of these things work technically. I do think the way that Scrivener saves its files is a little bit complicated, and it has to be because of all of these like nested categories that are in there. But it does a really great job like synchronizing work as you're working on it. And I remember I would freak out like if my computer crashed, but it does have a pretty good like autosave system and a kind of a really good like backup save system. I could find an old version of files. Reddit was very helpful for that. So there are workarounds for synchronization, and I don't think I ever really lost anything. Scrivener, that is what I use for my early drafts. Number 2, Pinterest. Pinterest, right, is like the OG mood board on your computer. Now, Pinterest only gets 4 stars out of 5 because it is now drowning in AI art, and it's absolutely infuriating. Now, I do plan on showing you guys kind of my Scrivener file, or like my Scrivener, my Pinterest, and what that looks like on screen. And you'll probably notice there's a lot of AI art. What you can do if you want to just hide as much AI art as possible is right-click hide. I don't honestly know if that does a whole lot, but that's what I've been doing with whenever I see AI art. Pinterest is where I collect all of my inspiration. So things from settings. I'm a very visual person, but I can't draw at all. And so Pinterest and having like a place where I can just store all of my like inner images is very helpful, and it's very messy. So I usually split up my boards in terms of setting and in terms of characters or like face claims for a book. So it'll be like setting for Children with Gifts, and then just like faces for Children with Gifts, and that's it. And those are the only 2 categories that I'll have. That can be real people, and that can be artwork. That way I can kind of solidify an image of the person in my head of my characters, because I don't usually actually have like a picture in mind when I create my characters or think of my characters. Usually that comes later when I maybe see or think like, oh, this would be a good person to play that character if this was like a movie or something like that. And I will imagine like it's kind of a blurry, similar looking face. So Pinterest, OG mood board, good at what it does. 5 would be 5 out of 5 stars if I could just find a way to easily get rid of AI art, but I can't figure out how to do it. When am I using Pinterest? I think that's something I'll try to include for all of these sections. But when am I using Pinterest? I'm using Pinterest when I am in the planning stages of my book. So very much like just vibes, thinking about them, imagining kind of like that daydreaming of my characters and what they're doing and why that matters and who they are. Pen has not hit paper yet. I have to really envision myself in a universe in order to write about the universe. So I really like put myself in there, looking at my characters, watching what they're doing. I envision myself in my universes, but I don't like insert myself into my story, if that makes sense. I don't really do like self-inserts ever. I think if I were to insert myself into a character, I would be that character who's like wearing a hood and is walking somewhere, and the rest of the main characters have been like chasing someone down, and they see this person in the hood and they think it's that person, and so they grab that person and rip the hood off their head, and then that person turns around and it's not the person that they're looking for, and they're just like, well, what's going on, like what? And then you never see the character again because they're not relevant. That would be me if I inserted myself into a character, just like causing problems for no reason. So it's more about like inserting myself in the universe so I could describe it better. So Pinterest, 4 out of 5 stars, losing stars because of AI art. Number 3, my third sort of software that I use for writing, Milanote. And I think I found Milanote off of YouTube. Like people just started, there were a lot of like both booktubers and authortubers, I can't recall any off the top of my head, who had like Milanote sponsorships, and that's how I heard of it. And I really enjoyed it, and I should have used their codes, but I didn't for some reason. That's how they get you, I bet. Anyway, Milanote, I'm giving 4 out of 5 stars, and it's losing a star because of cost. $20 if you pay annually, and $12 to $13, I think $13 a month if you pay once a month. Now, maybe it's new, and I don't know much about the company. Maybe I imagine it's newer, kind of more startup-y, and so it has to just be a little bit more expensive in order to, you know, make ends meet. But I feel like that's steep, and so it's losing a star for that. But otherwise, I think it's a great software. When do I use Milanote? You know, a story is not just vibes, like it needs plot. And so that is when I go from vibes to plot. And I like Milanote because it's very simple, and they don't include a lot of options. There are not a lot of bells and whistles, and not a lot of ways to customize really. Like, yes, there's like coloring, like you can change the colors of note cards and lines and stuff, but other than that, all you can really do on Milanote is write text, like copy paste images and pictures and maybe put like a very short, like a caption attached to like the image of the picture, and draw lines between things, like arrows and lines between things. And that's about it. It's just like a flat blank space for you to organize your thoughts. I think that's good, because if I could do more than that, I would, and then I would ruin the purpose. So because I can't do a whole lot of it, all that really happens is I am now making associations between thoughts and ideas, and relationships between them. So this leads to this, or these two are just related and connected, or this plot beat leads to this plot beat through XYZ. And so I'm really taking the disorganized mess that was my Pinterest board and creating something that means something with purpose. I'm becoming more intentional when I'm using Milanote. I think Milanote is great for like zoom in and zoom out concepts, if that makes sense. I'm really taking big picture into slightly smaller sections. I'm not quite details yet. Oh, okay, I'm gonna, ooh, my foot is cramping. Let's move this. We're not going to, let's let that rest, okay? Sorry, I thought I was still 12 years old or some nonsense. Just kidding, I'm an old lady. I'm losing count. I think this is number 4. Number 4, Notion. Notion is basic and it still gets 5 out of 5 stars. I know everybody and their mama be using Notion. Actually, Notion's tricky. Notion gets 4.5 out of 5 stars, and it's because of the funkiness when it comes to using it offline, because there are so many times where I'm like, man, you know what I really want to do is use Notion on the plane without paying for Wi-Fi on the flight. I looked up as to why there's not a great like offline system for Notion, like why can't I use it? And again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a programmer, I don't know how any of this works, but from what I've been able to glean from Reddit, for Notion to really be offline and to be able to synchronize it once you're online would be very difficult because of the nesting database aspect of it, like because that you can sort of databases and they all affect each other. They're all usually they're all connected and linked, and so that makes synchronization difficult in terms of using it offline, and I believe them because I'm not an engineer. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and that's why they're not losing a whole star. That's why they're only losing 0.5 stars. Notion is my number 1 planning tool. So this is kind of the tool I'm using right before I go into Scrivener. I mentioned earlier that Scrivener can really work as a second brain. You can put all of your character sheets, character studies, location information, all the planning stuff into Scrivener into the same file, but it doesn't work for me. Notion works better because of that visual aspect. So I use Notion for that. And I will post a link to my Notion template if anybody's interested would like to use it. Go off. And it is a mix between Rebecca Mix's template. That's kind of what I've started off with. I'll also link that in the description. But I expanded it a little bit more to include things like an encyclopedia or a compendium for my story, especially for my fantasy writers. I'm a fantasy writer, science fiction fantasy primarily. And so, especially when I'm doing secondary world, things like, location, objects. The encyclopedia is almost like my stories, like Bible. This is everything you need to know about this, but not just the story, but about the setting, the location. So that's where I put all that information, is in my Notion template. I also have one with Save the Cat's beat sheet to plan out my story, and that is usually as far as I go with plotting. So I will plot out every single beat of my story through Save the Cat, but I don't go into further details. This happens in chapter 1, 2, 3, and etc. I will plan as far as the beat sheet, and then I will go from there and kind of let the characters do their thing and write what I think should come next, which means that there's a lot of shuffling, a lot of moving around, a lot of expanding. I do tend to be more of an underwriter, so I expand a little bit more, usually in draft 2. As I'm writing, I can slot in, which chapters are in which beats. And so I keep things organized in that sense. I will also make a note of, which characters are in chapter 1, what's happening, what's the setting. So usually I'm in Notion before I've started typing, and I'm still in there as I'm working on my story to kind of finagle like which chapters ended up in which beats, and then I get into Scrivener again to drafting. Number 5, I think, Inkarnate. I'm giving 5 out of 5 stars, and Inkarnate is a map making software. And I think I heard about it from some friends who DM D&D games, who they're dungeon masters for D&D campaigns. What I like about Inkarnate is it's $5 a month or $25 a year, so it's not super expensive. I mean, I allow it because it's all online. It's like an online service, and if it's online service, I understand why it would be a subscription based, like for access, and so it still gets 5 out of 5 stars, I guess. Anyway, Inkarnate, really like it. Lots of bells and whistles. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed if you're not familiar with or haven't made a map before. So there's a lot of templates that you can use, and so they can use their user generated templates, and people will kind of post them, and you can start off with their templates and work from there, take stuff out. if you're a little bit too overwhelmed, which I thought was nice. I think Inkarnate takes a lot of getting used to and can be very overwhelming, but I love that. I think this is where the bells and whistles are needed in making a map, in terms of like texture, mountains, every little like house or city, like those are different styles, like different stickers that you can use. Also have different map types or map styles as well. Battle maps, regional maps, country maps, and so depending on what sort of story you're working on, I think you can make Inkarnate work. You can really start from the ground up, like you really want to start from a blank map and go from there. You can do that. You can start from a template and break it up or break it down or build it up and go from there. So I think that's great. All the fonts, the labels, the names, those are all stickers that you can use. After I created my map, I discontinued my subscription, and that was fine. I still have access to my map. You can save your map too, but I also have access to it. I just can't edit my map at all. Overall, I think it's a great service for fantasy people. 5 out of 5 stars. Number 6 is Aeon Timeline. 5 out of 5 stars. However, I can really see Aeon Timeline not working for people. I can see people giving it like 0 out of 5 stars because it comes with a lot of bells and whistles as well. And I think it does take a lot of getting used to. But let me first explain what it is. So Aeon Timeline is a service, and you purchase it. I think it's $70, yeah, and you use it to map a timeline of your story. So it's helpful for people like me who really struggle with pacing. If you've been watching a lot of my videos, you know pacing is the bane of my existence. And so if you struggle with pacing, so helpful because you can visually see where your story is going and where it lands. And you can include as many details about your story as you want. Plot beats, chapters, location, people, story arcs, characterization arcs, themes, all of that. This is kind of where things get tricky because the more you get to use it, kind of look up how people use it online, you'll notice that people use the same the same feature differently, and that can be a little bit confusing. I use it so I can visually see, you know, how long does my character spend in this location? Like I can really see that. Or how long are we in this plot beat? Like how many days go by and we're stuck in this plot beat? How many days go by in this location versus this location? Am I stuck somewhere for too long? Am I stuck in a plot beat for too long? Do so many chapters exist in one location, or do I skip around way too much? Is the plot moving too fast? Something that I don't always think about when I'm reading is how much time is passing. They'll say so in the book, but I'm just not internalizing that information. And so as a writer, I have to be very aware and very cognizant of that pitfall for me personally as a writer, because I know I'm not usually paying attention anyway, so I better be paying attention in my writing. And so this was so helpful with seeing the pacing in a visual sense, realizing, oh, they're like spending way too long in this location. That can kind of feel like it's slowing down the story. Now, when to use it? I would advise using Aeon Timeline as you're drafting and as you're revising. And so as you draft like chapter 1 and you're done with it, put that information into Aeon Timeline however you want it to look or be and all of that. So that you're at the end of when you're done drafting, you're not kind of going back and being super tedious about what happens in chapter 1. This, what's the location? This, what story arcs or themes are mentioned? This, because that was so tedious my first time using it because I hadn't heard of it before. Aeon Timeline, I don't think a lot of people have heard of it before. I so recommend it. Give it a shot. It does, I think growing pains is you don't have a problem with it. And they don't have a lot of options for templates either. They do have, I think, 4 or 5 templates that you can start off with, and I think the only thing those templates are helpful for is seeing how you can use it. I don't think they're good templates for building off of. Number 7 software that I really enjoy, Power Thesaurus. So Power Thesaurus, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It is a crowd-funded thesaurus that's maintained by a team of editors. I use this as my really fast thesaurus. Now, of course, there's Merriam-Webster.com, there's dictionaryandthesaurus.com. They're just flooded with ads, and they're kind of annoying to use because of those ads. Also, you can put in idioms and phrases, which I think you can do in dictionary.com and thesaurus.com, but you put in idioms and phrases, and it will also generate some synonyms or other phrases that you can use instead. I found it very helpful for anachronisms. So for example, one I think I was using maybe fireworks, and it won't necessarily just give you kind of literal synonyms for fireworks, like the things that explode in the air. because people are generally using it, maybe are using it in terms of like a simile or a metaphor. And so you'll also see good synonyms for like exploded or exploded with emotion, like things like that, like very tangentially related to the word that you're actually looking for, and that can be helpful for that reason. Almost like anticipating like why you're using it, because it's because it's crowdsourced information. So I actually really like it. I really liked Power Thesaurus. Number 7 or number 8. Twitch/YouTube. I'm a long form girly, and sometimes I need someone to be around for me to do my work. So body doubling can be very helpful. And so I follow a couple of Twitch streamers. There's a like writers group on Twitch, and they will just stream as they're writing, or stream while they're working on their writing. And so I'll work on my writing while they're streaming their writing. YouTube writing sprints has been pretty big recently. I say big, I know we're a small community on YouTube. But I've noticed quite a few, but there's so many writers who post sprints and will write and work on sprints. And so I will kind of work on my own writing or whatever I'm doing as they are also working on their writing. Last resource will be Reddit. And I'm giving Reddit 3 out of 5 stars because Reddit can be a little rough, and I think you need to go in with a lot of discernment when you're going into Reddit. Reddit is the ultimate like crowdsourced just depot of information, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, because I think there are a lot of echo chambers on Reddit as a result through the subreddits. But again, it is the best sort of Ask Jeeves replacement, and I love Reddit for that reason. When I need a real person to answer a question, and I am worried that the blog post is just an ad sponsor, like what do we all do? We search a thing and then we type Reddit at the end if I want like a real answer. Because everything is just ads and sponsored and blah, blah, blah. It gets 3 out of 5 stars because you do have to go in with discernment, okay? You cannot trust everything you're reading on Reddit. Lighting had just like significantly changed. It's been all rainy today, and now like the sun is out, but it's still gloomy, but boom. I've mentioned this subreddit before, and it's our pub tips, and that is where you can post a copy of your query. People will critique your query. That's the whole purpose. They do have rules to follow. Those rules, I think it's like you have to, if you post your query, you can't post another one for another week or 2 weeks or something like that. So follow their rules. I posted my very first query, my children with gifts query there, and received some feedback that was super helpful. But go in with like some thick skin, because they're not doing the compliment sandwich sort of review or critique. You come into our pub tips looking for a critique, they will give you critique. They'll give you actionable advice, and I do think overall they try not to be mean unnecessarily. But if you're looking for someone to like kind of pat you on the back, or you're, if you know you're not ready for a critique, wait. But I think people there are really there to help. And so I do think it was helpful for my query, at least. From a research perspective for your stories even, like if you want to know like what is it like to live in a certain state, you can check that subreddit. Now, of course, I think on Reddit, most people are complaining, but it can be helpful. Like, what is it like to live in this state? What is this? How do people feel about this thing? So from like a research perspective, I think Reddit can actually be a little bit helpful. So in conclusion, so those are all of the like software resources that I use in my writing. Now I'm actually gonna like take a little pause, and we're going to take a look and see what the video kind of looks like from a focus perspective. And if we're looking good, we're going to keep on keeping on with the book recommendations and resources that I recommend. Yeah, I'm really cozy. I have like a blanket here and everything. I will need to figure out the glasses situation. Yeah, I know I could wear like contacts for filming, but that just feels very not like me. Here's the thing. The right answer, if I do want to fix the lighting situation and not have what's going on with my glasses happen, I need to get a better like light box, right? And I need to get a better light box and soft box. And it needs to be the proper one that's a little bit further away so I can actually place it correctly, watch what's going on with my glasses. Because right now I have just like the primary light on me, right, essentially on my camera, and I am truly finagling the situation on top of my Sony EZV-10 with a fabric over it. Like I'm truly MacGyvering this. Like I know what I need to do to get the lighting right, but I'm being super stubborn, and I really just don't want that giant thing in my house. Also, let me know how my talking speed is. I've received 2 different like feedback about how quickly and fast I speak, and that is true. I talk fast. In this video, I'm actually actively working on talking slower. I've actually filmed this video before, but it was before I decided I'm gonna try and slow things down, and so I'm refilming. I've had some people say, thank you for talking fast, because I'm so used to double speeding YouTube videos because everyone else talks really slow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so you relate too? Because I listen to most YouTube videos at 1.25 speed baseline. Like that's just what the setting is. When I was in medical school, I listened to lectures at 1.5 to 2x speed because in med school, they be giving you so much information and you can need to keep up and you need to study. And I can't listen to 6 hours of lectures and then also study. That's impossible. So we 2x that. So we 2x it, and that's 3 hours, and now I can study. So my baseline for what is fast and what is slow when it comes to talking is so wonky, so off. I also kind of consider that maybe it would work in my favor that I talk fast because apparently no one has like the attention span. And I also received some feedback that I talk a little bit too fast. I think that's also important because I could have people who are watching my channel who, you know, they're learning English or English isn't their first language. And so that's a barrier to them. But yeah, I do want to talk slow so I'm more accessible. And also I have received commentary and feedback in real life that I talk really fast. People say I should slow down. People think it's because I'm nervous. I'm just very used to talking fast, but I will work on it and that will take time. I do talk fast and usually is when I'm comfortable. I even went back to look at my old videos and my very first video that Welcome to AuthorTube. I talk so much slower in that video. And then my last recent ones, there are moments where I'm just like, boom, 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 let's go. So that means I'm more comfortable in front of the camera and with you guys. So that was a whole lot of nothing. Let's get back to the point. Now let's get into some of the book recommendations. So these are books and resources that I use as a writer. And this is, I guess, kind of a recommendation too, but these are books that I use as a writer. The Emotion Thesaurus. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. And what it does is it kind of lists emotions, feelings, frustration, anger, desperation, desire, lust, curiosity, appalled, all of these different words. And each page, and it's full 2 pages. I think all of them are at least like left and right 2 pages, gives you a very quick, super quick definition, not like the Merriam-Webster definition, like just quick summary, what does this feeling mean? And it gives you physical signals and behaviors, so what a person would look like if they are feeling this way, internal sensations, how would they feel in their head or internally, mental responses, acute or long-term responses for the emotions, signs that the emotion is being suppressed, and also what this emotion might escalate to or de-escalate to, and so like power verbs. Now, I think this is a helpful resource if you're stumped. You know, a thesaurus, like a regular thesaurus, it'll just give you another word for like excitement. But this book will tell you, you know, if someone is feeling excited, maybe some physical signs and behaviors could be verbalizing thoughts and feelings without hesitation, hugging others, throaty laughter. And so that also kind of gets your brain working a little bit differently. You might not even use any of these. And a lot of times this is what happens to me when I kind of check the word. I might not use anything that's actually written there, but it will kind of get my gears turning a little bit differently so I can describe like that emotion differently in my book. You know, especially if you have a character who, like their character arc maybe is kind of working through fear or working through grief. And so they feel fearful a lot, but you don't want to use the word fear 95 times in your book. That's very repetitive and readers notice, and it really can take you out. You need to find different ways to basically describe that feeling every single time. You know, this is helpful too with like crutch words. I give it 4 out of 5 stars because I don't honestly like think a lot of the time. I use specifically what's written in here. They just didn't work for my characters. Characters blanching or blushing. My characters are black, so they're not, but they do feel like that. They feel the heat kind of rising up to their cheeks. That's an internal feeling, but I can't write that externally. No one else is going to see my characters blush. There was a lot of reliance I noticing like the colors of their faces change. And I'm like, well, okay. So I'm losing like that category entirely whenever I'm describing emotions and people of color. I think if you are someone who is naturally just very well read and just describing in general, I think if that's a strong suit of yours or you're pretty good at it at baseline, I don't think this book would be very helpful. I think this book is really more, if you tend to struggle with it, it's not your area of expertise, it's not your area of forte. My last recommendations, I always mention them, I think, in every single video. I already mentioned them in this one. Save the Cat. I have both Save the Cat Writes novel and I have Save the Cat Writes a YA novel. Now, I think in essence, they're the same book. However, I think if you're in genre fiction, how you write for adults and how you write for YA is different. It is different. It's not just the characters are older, now it's adult, the characters younger, now it's YA. There is an aspect to voice and pacing that is different in young adult than adult. I know sometimes people get a little bit weird when you talk a little bit like when you talk about like specific structure styles because it's boring if you do that, and I understand where people are coming from when they say that. However, I think you need to understand and know the rules before you can bend and break them. Those are all of the resources, things that I currently use. And I might kind of update it if the things that I use just naturally change over time. Thank you again for the 500 subscribers. I really appreciate every single one of you that are here, even if you're just watching and peacing out. I think that's okay. Hi to you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope today's video was mildly interesting or entertaining. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see you in the next one. I say every video is gonna be long, but they're always like 30 minutes max. Oh, me. Oh gosh.
I wish we could skip right to the end, but we keep dancing slow.